Got some red huckleberry in bloom there, some red alder, evergreen huckleberry, salal, western red cedar. I mean, the species diversity here is pretty unreal. Did you know that when a species is listed as endangered, it's at risk of going extinct? And this is determined by a few factors such as a population decrease of over 70%, limited geographic range, and the probability that that population is going to go extinct being at least 20% in the next 20 years. And a species is considered to be critically endangered when they've had a population loss of over 90% with a 50% probability of going extinct in 10 years. In all these cases, the two biggest contributing factors to a species going extinct is habitat loss and limited genetic variation in the population. But what if we applied that same logic to ecosystems? Ecosystems like this are considered old-growth forests based on the highly adapted terminology of a forest over 250 years in this area, although in some regions only 140 years qualifies, despite this being a virgin forest ecosystem that has never had any major human modifications or alterations, with big trees like that Douglas fir there being over 350 years old. So these ecosystems are a rich blend of all sorts of different species of plants, animals, fungi, bacteria that are completely unique to these specific populations. You know, everything from this bracken fern here all the way up to the cyanobacteria and the lichen way up in the canopy up there. And while we've identified about 1.2 million species on this planet, ecologists like E.O. Wilson estimate that there are between 5 and 100 million different species that we haven't identified yet, let alone understand what they do, how they live, and their place within these massive, intricate ecosystems. So forest ecosystems have evolved over thousands and thousands of years. So even if we cut them down, replant, and wait 250 years for it to be an old growth forest, this specific mix of species in these ecosystems would likely never return as it is. And even if it did, it would take thousands of years, which in human timelines basically means that once they're cut down, they're extinct. Temperate rainforests all across the world make up less than 0.2% of all the landmass in the world, which means that their geographic range is pretty dang limited. And ones like this, with this mix of Douglas fir and hemlock and all of this rich understory, only exists here in Cascadia and nowhere else in the world. Currently in BC, the high productivity old growth forest that remains is less than 2.7% of its original extent or population, which when compared to the endangered species definition falls into the extremely critically endangered category. Heck, I mean, even if we use the BC government's own publicly available stats that includes all the different types of old growth forests in the province, that's still only 23% remaining, which is still significantly less than the endangered species listing of 30%. These remaining ecosystems are currently facing ongoing habitat loss with development and logging that clear cuts these forests and replaces them with pre-selected tree saplings planted solely for commercial benefit, which not only reduces the genetic variety within the tree species of our forest, but it gives no chance for the diversity of less economically viable species to become established and add to that diversity, such as slow-growing yellow cedars or Pacific yews. Additionally, this takes in no consideration for the myriad of different organisms that exist in these forests, from single-cell protozoa in the soil to the different fungi and insects, of which we still have no idea how many there really are, their place in these ecosystems, or whether or not they'll ever be able to come back. Right now, scientists estimate that at our current rate of progress or logging, within the next 5 or 10 years, these old growth forest ecosystems are going to be completely wiped out. Despite their symbolism, cultural importance, and significance within our identity as a society, it's obvious that these remaining fragments of old-growth forests are critically endangered and still actively being destroyed, and that once they're gone for good. Let's consider the bald eagle here, for example, and its cultural role or significance, because it was once listed as an endangered species, but after years of restoration and rehabilitation, I mean, they're everywhere now. Can you imagine if we had just let bald eagles go extinct because a few big companies and government officials were making money off their destruction? I mean, ultimately, it was found that DDT was a significant factor in killing bald eagle populations, and that's what forced its ban on use back in the 70s, despite it being produced by industry giants like Monsanto and the numerous governmental and agricultural ties. So we've done it in the past, and we can do it again. Let's not let these forest ecosystems go the way of the dodo, and instead let's band together to find solutions that work to keep these ecosystems around to help, mitigate climate change, stabilize our soils, protect us from wildfires, host all of this amazing biodiversity, and continue being the backbone of the culture we live in for generations to come.